their own things.
Very nice. Very creative. I would just take a pen.
And then tell them your other step that you took with the handmade paper.
Another series uses another law which I'm not completely familiar with. That's called Schachter. And there you're not permitted to make a fabric with two different materials, wool and linen in particular, specifically. So I wasn't interested in making fabric, I was interested in making an art material, so I made paper. I took linen, flax, and I took linen paper and made pulp and added the wool. And now through personal experience, I know why you don't mix these two things. Because the wool just, it's like the thing in the drain, it just doesn't want to interact with the flax. But I achieved some interesting results with this mixed paper. And so what I don't know is if this rule is only limited to making fabric to be worn, or it's something where they say never do this. So if it's never do this, my paper is heretical. If it's just within a certain bound, then my paper is like these other works where it's right.
Ben, as you've been researching the laws you're trying to follow and what have you, and these boundaries and what have you found other artists that are using this as their core source material?
Mm-hmm. There's an artist...
More than you thought you would find?
Well, if you add two, it's more than I thought. There's one fellow who made a laser Eruvim instead of string, so if you cross it, it breaks, and then it's gone. He also found the historical Eruvim in the Lower East Side. In Manhattan, there had been an elevated train that was the boundary, and he used basically barcodes to label the route, so you could walk and find the barcodes as this boundary. Another artist, Maya Escobar, who is participating in the show I'm currently curating at St. Vincent, that's called Tzitzit, and that's up to the 28th, so come see that. She has a work called the Berlin Eruvim. Berlin doesn't have an Eruvim, but she's done street interviews with people and they say, tell me about the Jewish community in Berlin today, and so it's this mixture of ideas. There's also a fellow who built an Eruv outside the gallery. He put up string and going around nothing. And so that was at a biennial. I can't remember his name. But it's in the air. It's been used several times by different people in the last decade. And the field of Jewish studies is, some people have taken a physical turn, looking for defining a Jewish space, and in a theoretical way. Where is the space of prayer? Where is the space of daily activity? And those kinds of questions. So Jewish spaces has been examined by different people in different ways lately. When you don't think you'll find them, they appear.
What do you look up on the net? Eruv?
I look at Eruv. I'm at the point now where I actually have to say, name the synagogue or the temple, because I've drilled down so far. JCC in Pittsburgh, or JCC St. Louis, or Orthodox Community Kansas City. I have to be that specific now, because if you say Eruv, most of these will come up, but I'm looking for more. So.
What about the ones that existed prior to World War II?
Sure.
Destroyed. Are they still there, but no one lives there?
Probably not, because they're so tenable. It's just, nothing.
It evaporates.
It evaporates. It's disappeared.
As people move.
I did find one historian there from Krakow, but I haven't found others. And that's a painting I'm a little sort of hesitant to make. It's got to be something else than this, if it happens.
Can you have an Eruv in a university community?
Sure.
You ever studied those?
This one is basically a university. There's
That's University of Pennsylvania, Drexel.
Right. Okay.
Cornell just put one up. as the Jewish students demand, is basically how it goes.
So, but they would have to be within that to operate that. If they were
On
at
Shabbat.
home, yes, if they were
Yes.
at home, that wouldn't work. If
Right.
they were under-
So I could imagine someone who had been going home on weekends to be able to honor the holiday the way they wished, and then as soon as the university had an Eruv, staying on campus because they now had a place to be and to get around. I could imagine that happening.
I don't understand the physical presence of the strength and how that's dealt with if it's rained on. I mean, where it's taken up, what the tactile part of it.
These community Eruvs have someone who goes around every Friday afternoon before Shabbat and checks it. And if it's down, he lets the community know that it's down, and one can no longer carry or push a stroller that particular Shabbat.
But it just stays there until it rots. I mean,
Well, it has to be fixed, and so they come around after Shabbat to fix it. And
so it's
so
always there.
it's always there. Well, these are always there.
If anybody's really interested in seeing some of this, if you have on demand and you can get The Good Wife on the cable, they just did a show about
Right.
that. And then that was what it was about, that the wire, it was a wire,
That's why I was,
and it was attached to their house at one point, but it came down, and what the responsibility is for it.
And that show came on literally that week I visited your studio.
Yeah. It was just repeated, I think, last week or the week before.
It can't be a painted line?
No.
It's
If-
gotta be
when
a,
you think back to the original idea. They had houses next to each other,
right.
and they had a garden wall. And the gate to the garden wall, to be a gate, is a whole section of the Talmud to describe what's an entrance. Well, if you look at this doorway, it has a post and a lintel, right? The lintel running across the top. Without that lintel, it's just two posts. It's not yet a door. So they need to make it a door to complete that boundary. So the string today completes that boundary.
But a painted line wouldn't work.
No,
It's gotta be a wire or
it's
string.
got to be physical, because it's got to be a lintel.
Well, line's physical.
Yeah.
Thickness, I mean, come on, I mean,
Well, there's a great example on Forbes, which I just saw, and you told me it was there.
Right.
When you drive down Forbes Avenue in Pittsburgh, and you get to Dallas, and there's two columns of entering, to park or.
It's a cemetery.
It's a cemetery. Well, there's a wire that connects the two, because there's nothing that connects.
The other answer to that question is, how could I draw a line if there's nothing there? I have to put something up to paint it.
I was thinking of painting a line at the bottom.
No. Well, the idea is that it's a wall that I can't pass through. If it's on the ground, I can step over it. But if it's
Oh, you have to pass through it.
I'm not permitted to pass through. If it were on the ground, I could. But if it's a fence, that I think the limit, the lowest limit is 40 inches today. I can't easily step over that. That's a real boundary for me. But if I make that a string, you know, it's symbolic of the fence. So I can put that string up here, and it's symbolic of a wall.
You were saying in Squirrel Hill there isn't any physical,
And you wouldn't know it unless you looked.
And you wouldn't know unless you were looking for it. It's a game I play as I'm driving my children to school. I'm like, oh, it went over there. You know.
unfortunately, it's not good.
You have to really search.
And I presume resorts, for instance, in Kutcher's and Concord and Grothinger, all those places which kept kosher and
I would imagine.
went there, they would have the commercial
I
stuff.
don't know for sure, but it depends on who was coming and how the space was being used. But I would imagine some of them did. Although,
I think
I don't
because
know.
the kitchens are definitely kosher and high holidays are held there and various groups come.
right.